I'm Sarah and I'm quarantining from Cairo. This cooking workshop is part of Caravansary's virtual tours. So, if you go to Caravansary's page, you're going to find all these different people and you can watch their different workshops. There's an acting workshop, there's a video editing workshop, there's another cooking workshop, I think there's a chiropractor. There's so many different things to watch, and I'm just one of them. So today we are going to be making Gulab Jamun. This is not a recipe that I learned in my grandmother's kitchen, my Indian grandmother, not my Egyptian grandmother. It's something that she would always buy every time I go to India, and I would always find it in the fridge. So no matter what time I arrived, she would always ask, like, would you like some Gulab Jamun? And so it's an important recipe to me. It's a childhood recipe. It's something my father would bring home often, and it's something I had to recreate in Egypt because I couldn't find a suitable alternative. So I'm gonna start with the sugar syrup, then we're gonna make the dough, then we're gonna fry the dough, then we're gonna put it in the sugar syrup, and then we'll be done. Gulab Jamun is a recipe that is sweet and warm and comforting. I don't have much of a sweet tooth in general, but this is one of my exceptions since I was a child. Let's go. Let's make sugar syrup. Pot. First thing we're going to do is we're going to toast the cardamom and then just leave it there for a few seconds on low heat. These are 2 cups of sugar. I'm going to be adding the sugar, all of that sugar, and break it up. So these are 2 cups of sugar and 2 cups of water. And then I'm going to stir gently and allow all of that sugar to melt. Don't turn up your heat, just leave it to gently melt. So we're waiting for the sugar syrup to come to a boil. Once the sugar on the bottom is all melted, you can turn your heat up and then bring it to a boil and then reduce your heat and reduce your sugar syrup. So it's supposed to be a loose syrup, it's not supposed to be a very thick syrup. It's not like a Middle Eastern dessert. The syrup is light, and it has to be warm. The syrup has to be warm. Gulab Jamun can be served cold or warm. I personally prefer warming it up because then it's just like a hug. It's like a hug in a bowl. That's what it's like. So we're just gonna wait for this to boil, and once it's done, I'm going to be making the dough, and that's the tricky part, because there's always a tricky part. The bubbles are happening. Bubbles. There are bubbles over here. Homesick for me is not really a place. It's people. Like I like going back home because it's my father's home. So I go there and I remember my childhood, like my 3rd birthday, where they got me a snake charmer, and it was yeah. Alright, so we are going to make the Gulab Jamun dough. 1/2 cup of milk powder. Please use full fat milk powder and full fat yogurt for this. 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour, and then we have 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda. And we're going to mix all of this together until it all looks unified and it's all the color of the milk powder. We have 2 tablespoons of yogurt. You can knead this with your hands if you prefer, but it gets kind of sticky, and so it's best to use a flexible spatula. And then we have 1 tablespoon of ghee. I don't prefer that you would use butter. because the butter has extra sugars in it that will burn the gulab jamun much faster. And then what we do is we just press it down and watch it come together. Now, depending on the flour you've used, the absorption level changes. So if your dough is still a little dry, like this one, you can add a tiny bit of milk. So I have a tablespoon of milk here. I'm not going to use the whole thing. I'm just going to knead this all together one more time. Add a tiny bit of milk, okay? And then you mix it all in. A small dough, because this is relatively a very small quantity of dough, but you get 15 big gulab jamuns to comfort you in your belly. Yes. Now, gulab jamun is usually made with something called khoya, which is dried milk solids, and it's usually mixed in with paneer, which is the Indian cottage cheese, and then it's kneaded together with flour. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bit of oil in my hands, and I'm going to grease my hands with the oil. A very thin layer of oil, shouldn't be too greasy, just enough so that the dough doesn't stick. And then I'm going to take a small piece of the dough and I'm going to shape it into a ball. Alright, that's what it looks like. Again, if you notice, I'm making very small balls because they're going to expand. We're going to continue this 13 more times. The quarantine, staying at home, having curfew, and it's really allowed me to kind of find myself in the kitchen again. Staying at home just kind of kicked me in the bum. And I'll show you, I'll make some slightly bigger ones and then some slightly smaller ones. And when we fry them and then put them in the sugar syrup, you'll realize how big they grow. Alright, so we're gonna take 3 at a time. Drop them in, let them sink, and then they're slowly gonna come up. Make sure to have something open-mouthed. So I'm making gulab jamun because it's something I can't really guess, like I said before, in Egypt. And around this time of year I go to my grandma in India. And I haven't been able to go this year. It's usually her birthday around this time of year. I haven't been able to go because of the coronavirus. So getting back to travel, I think the thing I missed most is traveling. And then getting back home. And then opening up my suitcase and smelling that other country in my suitcase. So this is the perfect color. Look at those. And I feel like homesickness is never really a place. It's like a person. It's like a longing. So we are done. Gulab jamun is done. I had made extra to show you the difference when it plumps up. So once you take it out of the oil, you really need to leave it to soak for at least half an hour to an hour before you serve it. That's so that they become plump and juicy. So if they stay in the syrup overnight, this is what happens. So this one has been soaked overnight, so is this one. And these smaller ones are the ones we fried today. So this is what's gonna happen when it stays for at least an hour. It's just gonna plump up. So we take some of the syrup, spoon it on top, and then open it up. It's soft. very tender and really, really good. I hope you enjoyed the recipe and the process. I think the one thing I've realized with this pandemic is that it's created a lot of longing or yearning for things, and I think that's what I'm missing most, being able to just book a ticket and go. So yes, now I'm getting emotional, so thank you, Caravansarie. And yeah, maybe next time we'll do this from India, maybe.